Alrighty. I hereby call the City Council meeting for January 10th to order. If I could get Councilmember Mercado to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If everybody stand. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty. Roll call, Linda.
Councilmember King.
Did you call me?
Councilmember King.
Oh, yeah, here.
Councilmember Mercado.
Here.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Here.
Vice Mayor Andrusik.
Here.
And Mayor Sierra.
Here. Thank you. Any reordering of the agenda tonight?
No, ma'am.
Alrighty. Our next agenda item is public comments. This is when anybody who wants to get up and talk about anything, whether it's an agenda item or not, has their 3 minutes, compliments, complaints, whatever. I have 2 speakers, so if anybody else wants to turn in a slip, I'm going to call our first speaker, Caroline. Welcome.
Thank you. Members of the Buellton City Council, thank you for allowing me to speak with you. Our elected representatives have a duty to pass laws that maintain public safety. In 2018, Democrat Governor Jerry Brown did just the opposite. He signed a law that allowed state authorities to refuse to cooperate with federal immigration officials to remove people who have committed crimes and are here illegally. The consequences of partisan politics, replacing a logical and objective analysis, have again proven deadly. On December 26th, California State Police Officer Runil Singh was needlessly killed by a person who had already been twice arrested for drunk driving, had other criminal warrants, and was here illegally. The sheriff for that county said, quote, "Law enforcement would have been prohibited from sharing any information with Immigrations and Customs Enforcement about this criminal gang member," end quote. Because of this Democrat law, now a man has been murdered. A wife has become a widow. A baby will grow up never knowing his father. And a police department has to cope with the heartbreaking loss of a valued member of their team. While another man, having broken God's 10 commandments, "Thou shalt not kill," must live the rest of his life with the crime of murder on his conscience. This incident is a tragedy for all concerned. Santa Barbara's district representatives in the California State Assembly and Senate are Ms. Monique Limon and Ms. Hannah Beth Jackson, respectively, both of whom are Democrats, and both of whom voted yes to support California sanctuary state laws, which contributed to the death of Officer Singh. Of course, Monique Limon and Hannah Beth Jackson never intended their yes votes to ever even remotely lead to someone's death. Where they failed, however, is to think rationally as individuals apart from the standard Democrat party line politics. It is in the best interest of public safety for voters to hold Monique Limon and Hannah Beth Jackson accountable for their irresponsible lack of leadership, and remember their failure when it is time for elections again in 2020. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you, and may each person listening have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All righty. Next speaker is Judy Pedersen. Step on up, please.
Thanks, Holly. What I wanted to speak about was some questions after I found out what was going to happen with the homes and everything on Central. So I'm going to table my remarks and everything till your next meeting.
Okay.
And come back with what I have to say.
It's nice to see you.
And it has all to do with streetlights, I'll tell you that much.
I noticed that. Well, and that'll be a good discussion.
Okay, so we'll see you next time then.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out tonight.
We'll have flashlights in case you...
Is that something we put on the agenda?
We can put it on the agenda. Judy's going to bring it up, and we can...
Something we can work
It's
on.
something council can work on, since you're probably aware of the problem. Alrighty, I am closing public comments. Moving on to the consent calendar. We've got quite a few today. Agenda item 1, the minutes of December 13th, 2018, regular city council meeting. Number 2 is the list of claims to be approved and ratified for payment to date for fiscal year 2018-19. Number 3, the quarterly report for July 1, 2018 through September 30th, 2018 from Visit San Ynez Valley, the Visit SYV. Number 4 is the monthly treasurer's report through November 30th, 2018. And the number 5 is receive fiscal years 2019-20 and the 2020-21 biennial budget process schedule. Gentlemen?
Motion for approval.
Second.
I will abstain from number 1 since I was absent.
There we go. Linda?
Okay, Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Aye.
Councilmember Mercado.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Andrusik.
Aye.
And Mayor Sierra.
Aye, thank you. Do we have any presentations tonight?
Not this meeting, ma'am.
All righty. We move on to public hearings. Agenda item number 6 is resolution number 19-01, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Buellton, California, approving a final development plan, 17-FDP-02, and tentative tract map, TTM 31060, for the Central Homes project located on the northeast corner of 1st and Central Avenue, assessors parcel numbers 099-283-005, 099-283-006, and 099-283-007. Ms. Kiefer.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. Andrea Kiefer, Planning Director. What you have before you tonight is the Central Homes project, which consists of 2 applications, and that is a final development plan and a tentative tract map. So the purpose, or the reason that the City Council is hearing this project tonight is because a tentative tract map is proposed as part of the project, and per the Buellton Municipal Code, those projects require approval by the City Council. So the final development plan is for the development of 8 single-family homes, each 2 stories, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and it also consists of approval of the central common area and landscaping around the perimeter. A development plan modification is required to reduce the required front and side yard setbacks as part of the approval of the final development plan. And the second application is the tentative tract map, which is required to divide the existing property into 8 individual lots, 1 for each home, so private ownership of each home. The applicant tonight, who is here the agent is actually here in the audience, Sang Kim. I've been working with him on the project, and the property owner and applicant is James Kim, who is not in the audience tonight. The project is located on the corner of Central and 1st Street. So you have, here's Central, and then 1st Street here, and this is Red Rose Court, and the Avenue of Flags, just to the east there. The property is 0.68 acres and is zoned RM16, which is medium family residential, maximum 16 dwelling units per acre. So the Planning Commission public hearing was opened on July 19th of 2018, and due to some planning inconsistencies and missing details in the project plans, was continued by the Planning Commission on several occasions, listed there up there in the PowerPoint. Ultimately, the Planning Commission adopted the resolution recommending approval to the City Council on November 15th of 2018. The project generally conforms to the development standards as required in the RM16 zone. I'll just go through those now, and the modification will be next. So again, the zoning is RM16, and in the RM16 zone, medium family residential zone, single family homes are allowed, and that is what is proposed as part of the project. The minimum lot size is 10,000 square feet, so the overall site is 30,000 square feet, therefore it meets that requirement. Density requirements requires a maximum of 16 units per acre, so for this particular site being 0.68 acres, that's 11 units maximum, and they're proposing eight single-family homes, so 8 units. The individual lots range from the size of about 3,100 square feet to about 4,800 square feet, and a minimum lot size or gross land area per dwelling, rather, is 2,722 square feet, meeting that requirement. Site coverage, the proposed is 29.5% of the site, or 8,840 square feet, and a maximum of 30% is proposed, so that code requirement is met. The height of the proposed building or homes is 24.5 feet, and for this particular zone, 35 feet maximum is allowed. The landscaping proposed as part of the project, or open landscaping and open space, so 40% is required in the RM16 zone, and they have provided 51% of the total net site area, gross site area, sort of in a combination of the central pathway, public central pathway area, the perimeter landscaping as part of the project, and then they do have some private patio areas that are included for each individual home. Parking required for the project, it's 2 spaces per home, and they've provided 2 garage spaces per home, covered, enclosed in each home. So the setback modification, which you included in attachment 9 of your staff report, hopefully gave you a little bit of an interpretation or understanding of what the modification is. However, I'll just quickly go over it. So it's the setback modification is required for both the side yard setbacks for lots 1 through 8, as well as for and a front yard setback for lots 1 through 4. So just to start with the side yard setback, in this case, this project really functions more so as either a planned residential development or a single-family residential project, given the context of where it's located. So, application of the strict setback side yard setback standards in the RM zone. In this case, the plans do not conform to that. However, again, given that it functions more as a single-family residential zone, the 5-foot minimum setback, which is provided, was seen by staff and as part of the recommendation of the Planning Commission as appropriate. So, if you have any questions about that, I have included the diagram in the next slide, but for now I'll move on to the front yard setback requirement, which is again required for lots 1 through 4 only. So that's the homes that are adjacent to the alley on the east side, and the interpretation on that was that per fire department requirements, the front yard for access, for emergency access purposes and addressing, will be along First Street for these lots. And so in this case, we have interpreted that to be the front yard or front entrance point for the project. And basically, the existing front yard setback is 15 feet for those lots, and the requirement is 20 feet. Again, so if you're applying the standards for the RS and RM zone, or medium family residential, single family residential zone, the requirement is 20 feet. 15 feet is provided, and the council does have the discretion to modify that requirement for the front yard setback. So this is just the sort of the diagram showing the locations of where those modifications are required. So the highlighted areas are the areas in which, if you were to apply the strict standards of the medium family residential zone, where they would need a modification. So I'm going to go through the site plan and just the project details, but I did want to start out with just this overarching slide here, which is there, as you read in the staff report, there are still remaining missing and inconsistent details in the project plans. I have worked with the applicant over the last year or more to reach a level of completeness that I felt was appropriate to bring for public hearing and for decisions on the project. But with that said, as part of the recommendation from the Planning Commission, Condition 73 has been added to require that these missing and inconsistent details are rectified prior to the planning department accepting any plans for review. And in that condition, I have listed it does say including but not limited to, but I have tried to list all of the conditions that would apply to, that they need to provide prior to submitting building for me to accept that. So I'll just go through and just, go through some of the main inconsistencies, main project details here. So you can see the 8 individual homes, and this is the alleyway here. So Red Rose Court is kind of up here, and here's the alleyway, and then lots 1 through 4 and lots 5 through 8. So again, this is First Street, and this is Central Avenue here.
Andrea, will they be widening the alleyway?
So yes, so I'll go through that. But now that you've mentioned it, I'll just start there. So basically, as part of their project, they are required, the existing alleyway, paved or unpaved, is shown as 17 feet. So there's portions that are currently paved, and there's portions that are currently grass or dirt or what have you. So this cross section that was provided as part of the project plans kind of shows where they will be adding pavement in the public right-of-way, as well as where they're going to be required to provide the city with an easement and additional pavement as part of their public improvements for the project. So this is the alleyway here. So this area is about approximately 17 feet wide. There is some additional paving that will need to be provided in the public right-of-way as part of the project, as well as from existing pavement, which is this line here, up to the existing power pole that's immediately adjacent to Red Rose Court. So this would be Red Rose Court here. So we've asked that they provide, this is a 1 foot of additional pavement from the existing pavement to the power pole. And then on this side here, on their property line, they are, 1, required to provide a 2-foot easement, as well as provide 2 feet of additional pavement to reach a fire department minimum requirement of 20 feet wide pavement.
Excuse me.
Backwards to the next
Oh, yeah, that's fine. This is fine. I'll go over the site plan.
Go ahead.
Are they required to upgrade the grade of the alley? I know it's an old alley. There's nothing. It's not. I don't know how many feet of max I do know, but there's a grading of base that's a normal for to support fire engines and that. And as far as I know, that alley is just a kind of I don't know exactly what it is, but it's probably not wouldn't be a road standard like the front street. You know what I mean?
So I'll let Rose address that.
No, they're not required to do any depth improvements to the alley, just provide additional width as far as the drive requirements for the fire department. That's the only improvements along the alley that they'll be performing.
So the substandard now the
sides will look great.
The side.
Right. No, they're not required to do that as part of this project.
Well, okay.
Okay, so I'll just point out, so there's driveway access to each of the homes in several locations. Basically, these 3, along the alley, there's 2 proposed driveways, and 1 is for this lot 1, they're calling it, which is the northernmost portion. And then there's a shared access driveway along the alleyway as well, that there will be a cross-access easement between these 2 properties for the shared driveway. That was done to limit the number of, to the best way possible, limit the number of driveways that are provided along the alley. Again, then there's a driveway proposed, 2 driveways along First Street, and then again 2 along Central Avenue, and again there's the shared driveway access to, again, provide limited additional driveways along the road. And just to point out some of the site amenities and maybe just briefly go over a couple of the missing details that are included in detail in the conditions of approval. But for instance, one of the inconsistencies is that they're not consistently labeling, for instance, the landscaping. They're not providing all of the detail of the private yard landscaping. It's hard to make out the central pathway, etc. And just some of the site amenity details that are included as part of the project. Just making sure that those details are provided on the plans, and what I'm asking for and what staff would be asking for is, I try to include that in the conditions and details, so I won't spend a lot of time on that. Yeah, so just to kind of go over that again, as part of the conditions, all site amenities shall be clearly labeled, landscaping shall be consistent with landscape plans. They need to be showing the walking paths, internal pedestrian connections, the fencing, the barbecue area, things like that. And again, as you saw in the site plan, the improvements to the alley were not really clearly shown, and so as part of their submittal, one of the conditions is that they do have the cross-section, but as part of the site plan, need to provide a little bit more clarity as to exactly where existing pavement is, where the easement is in relation to where the additional pavement will be required.
Excuse me, are they going to have a curb between the road and Red Rose Court?
A curb.
I mean,
It's a building.
it's like a street, but you have a regular curb and gutter kind of thing, so they could drive right into the building if there isn't something to stop them. Is that some part of? It's a roadway.
It's an alleyway. There's currently just edge of pavement as it is with dirt. So that's the condition of the areas for the entire alleyway behind Central Avenue and Avenue Flags as it is. The only reason additional curb would be put there is for drainage issues, or if there's an issue with change of elevation, which there is none here. And when we repaved the alleyway, there is the drainage was such that it follows that ribbon gutter down the center.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the...
Let me get back in those for a second. So we went and looked at all this. So at the top of the picture right there in the middle, that is a driveway basically that's going in. Right,
here?
correct.
This one?
That's the alley, right? So the access to that driveway is the alley that is under disrepair at this particular juncture.
The alley is not under disrepair.
It's partially dirt and gravel and...
There's a strip along the alley that is gravel.
Right.
So they're going to have to pave that section to make it conform with the rest of the alley.
Okay, and that
And
clarifies
so,
it
yes,
for me.
they're going to do
they're going to
right. They're going to do the
resurface
improvements
the improvement
right
to that
along their
access.
entire frontage along the alley.
Okay.
So there won't be
Just want to clarify.
it'll be continuous improvements.
Madam Mayor? While you're at that spot, will they be putting a slope so that when we have downpours, that it doesn't roll into the hotel? Rather than just putting a curb there, it seemed like
Is there a ribbon there?
there should be a...
They will have to do drainage improvements to make sure that there isn't
so that
impacting the other
standing
properties.
storm water will go to the middle of the driveway, of the road, the alley, and move out to the street rather than to either of the other property owners.
Right, they'll have to do the appropriate improvements to deal with that.
And that's included as a standard condition of approval for the project.
Because it could very easily, when you stand up there now, it slopes. If you just continue the grade that's there now, but it needs to have some modification.
Okay, continue.
So this is the landscape plan. So this, in my opinion, more clearly shows the design intent of the project site. And I just do want to clarify that the issues with the missing and inconsistent details of the project plans, they don't have anything to do with the site design, the overall site design. So this project, with the modification, will conform to the development standards in the municipal code. The concerns that have what's been the concern is just the missing and inconsistent details, but the overall site design is acceptable from the planning's perspective. But so I'll just kind of go over the landscape plan. So they have, in between each home, they've got basically, I call it a landscape wall. So they have, bushes that are tall and kind of buffer them from and give them privacy between each of the homes. And then again around the barbecue pit area and along the central pathway area. Then they do have some trees along the streets and a couple along the alley to just soften the architecture a little bit there. As part of the Planning Commission resolution that has been included in this resolution tonight was the requirement or the recommendation to the council that they provide additional screening in the for noise concerns in the barbecue pit area, just as to not impact these two homes here. So right now it's just a landscape barrier buffer, but whether it's a fence, some sort of wall, or some other kind of barrier to just soften the noise that might come from the use of that area. In addition, you can see here between lots 2 and 3 along the alleyway, there's 2 patios, so each of them have their own private outdoor patio, and there's some landscaping that separates the two, but there's nothing that really screens it currently, and so as part of the conditions as a recommendation from the Planning Commission, they've asked that the applicant provide a trellis, some sort of barrier to just sort of provide a little bit more privacy between these two these 4 properties, I guess, rather. So that has been included as in the conditions of approval. This is the site lighting plan, and you can see they're proposing pathway lighting along the central pathway area, as well as some tree uplighting within the central pathway area and tree uplighting on the landscaping around the entire perimeter of the project site. It has been included as a condition of approval that they provide a adequate photometric lighting plan to ensure that the off-site lighting lumens do not impact the adjacent residences and adjacent properties.
Is there street lighting special for that?
Actually, if you could go back to, so as part of their conditions of approval, you will see in there that there is a condition to add 1 additional street light, and that came from the recommendation of the Planning Commission. The exact location and design, etc., has been conditioned to be addressed at the building permit phase in working with the Public Works Director and the most appropriate location for that light.
So we don't know if it's on Central yet or on First Street?
Likely it'll be on Central, because on First Street there is one of those small cobra heads that's attached to one of the wood poles, and there's another one on Central similar further south of the project.
Okay. Thank you.
So these are the architectural elevations. So the color elevations, I tried to put them by plan so that you could kind of compare the two and see some of the inconsistencies. I won't go into too much detail. Those inconsistencies are included in the conditions of approval and staff report. And of course, if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. But some of the details that are inconsistent between the two and within the project plans are, one, for instance, this line here, I don't really know what to call it other than, the line that kind of divides the 2 floors was actually required to be removed as part of the architectural review comments, and they have removed it in subsequent non-colored elevations. However, you can see that it's still shown here. So that's just one example of something that needs to be made consistent and rectified prior to building permit plans. You can see that they've removed it from this, from...
What do you want?
Either one, just Plan 2 is fine. So moving on to Plan 2, I'll just point out sort of another inconsistency, which is related to the window details. So they're showing different window patterns, etc., between the color and non-color. So just those types of details that are, the overall design intent is relatively clear. It's just making sure that both the color and non-color elevations are made consistent, and that's included as part of the required changes prior to my acceptance of plans for building permits. And similar comments here. It's kind of throughout the project plan, same comments. So I just, for purposes of showing the different plans, included all 3 plans on the presentation. This is the tentative tract map. So you can see here it's the subdivision of the existing 3 lots. In this case, they did not provide the existing lots, which they will be required to provide prior to building permit per building department conditions of approval. But you can see how they've subdivided the lot, the 3 parcels, into 8 parcels for each individual lot. And included on the tentative tract map is also all of the required easements, which when I get to the next slide, we'll go through what those are. But just to point them out, there's a required 10-foot wide public utility easement. These are the 2 private cross cross-access agreements between these Lot 2 and 3, and then again Lot 6 and 7. They also are required to provide basically a common cross-access agreement across all of the subdivided lots for the central common area, so they will all have access to use this central common area. So again, not to go over it twice, but the minimum 2 foot wide alley easement required per fire department requirements, and the easements that I just spoke about, which is the cross-access and drainage utility easement for the central courtyard. And the 2 private driveway easements, and again, the 10 foot wide public utility easement. The affordable housing requirements. So every residential project is required per the inclusionary housing or inclusionary zoning code to provide a minimum of 15% of the units as affordable. So in this case, that would be 1.2 housing units. However, they do have other ways that they can satisfy this requirement, and what has been done in the past and what staff and the Planning Commission have recommended is the payment of a housing in lieu fee. The reason for that is because city staff does monitor and review the affordable housing applications, and so it's just not seen as cost effective for 1.2 units for the city to manage, as well as just the funds. The funds that are collected for all of these smaller projects can go toward funding, assisting with larger affordable housing projects.
They haven't yet.
So one example of that would be the senior housing project, that the potential to be able to use the funds that have been collected over the last period of years that we currently have in our housing in lieu funds, to then it could potentially fund a project such as that, which has 49 very low affordable units. So. And the project would be required to provide have CCNRs for the project, as well as an HOA or some sort of equivalent mechanism to maintain the common areas for the project. So in terms of site drainage, the bioretention area that's proposed in the central courtyard area, and all the other porous surfaces of the perimeter landscaping, private yards and the etc., will serve as to collect some of that drainage. So the roofs, the rain gutters, etc., will be routed to those areas and provide drainage. In addition to what they've provided so far on the plans, again, a standard condition of approval is to they need to obtain approval from the Public Works Department on their hydrologic and hydraulic studies to make sure that those are adequate for the proposed drainage.
Excuse me, is that above ground, or is that tied into the storm drain system? Storm drain, so you're saying that...
No, this isn't tied to a storm drain system. This is on-site water, the storm retention.
And then where does it run off the lot in front and into the street?
It's supposed to, their on-site's supposed to percolate into the ground system. It's not running into the street.
Oh.
So this project qualifies as a Class 32 categorical exemption as an infill project, and all the bullet point findings are what are required to make it qualify as such an exemption. And I won't read through them, but the project does conform to all of these bullet points. I will point out, as part of the resolution, it does indicate that it's this first bullet point here as modified by the Planning Commission. So as part of the decision on the project, I would just suggest or require that we just change that wording to City Council, because in this case it's City Council that would be making that decision. So the recommendation is that the City Council consider the adoption of Resolution 1901 as worded in the staff report. I'm available for any questions, or if you'd like the applicant to come up, that's fine too.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you very much for all of your work and our Planning Commission. It looks like a lot of thought and a lot of time went into this, and it is appreciated. Questions before I open it up for public input? Anybody have questions for Andrea?
I just had a question about the lighting. We know we're going to be in the future talking about lighting on Central Avenue, or at least that's one thing I'd like to talk about. We were going to talk about that with the neighbors And I know the whole street needs new lighting or some kind of a lighting plan. And I wonder how that would be tied into, or if there's a way that they could accommodate future lighting. It's a new development. That's not, the other house on that street are a lot of, it's an old street without a lot of, access to lights. You go down the street, it's all light. I mean, it's all dark. And I don't know if that's part of a master plan to get lighting on that street.
Well, in terms of this project, all we can require for this project is that they provide a street light, or however, in this case, a street light.
Right.
In terms of what happens in the future along Central Avenue, that would be more appropriately answered by maybe the Public Works Department, or I don't know if, Mark, you have a comment on that.
I was just going to mention there's no nexus to make this development pay for all the streetlights, so it would have to be a separate item for addressing by the council. So they have their one light, and that's basically
that wasn't a request, but I would like consideration for future lighting. If we're required to have a street light, maybe we could widen them out so that they light more of the street than just a little bit on the. I know they don't need to light the whole neighborhood, but we know that the whole neighborhood's going to need lighting at some point, and I just like to kind of make it conducive with future. Not anything extra, just a matter of the thought or the forethought of lighting coming.
Well, I had a couple questions for you, and then I had one for Mr. Kim, actually, too. First, presently on the property, you've got the man cave, and you have 410 Central. They're both going to be demolished then?
That's correct. All of the existing structures will be demolished as part of the project.
Okay. It looks like there's somebody in 410 right now. I don't know if that's true or not. But
I think maybe the applicant could answer as the property owner.
And then the other one, of course, this is one of my bugs. I was curious, this in lieu of fee, we keep building it up to help with affordable housing, and we do have this 49-unit senior apartment complex. Hopefully someday we'll be here, although my understanding is that it will remain private and will not be open for any community services at this time.
No, there's been no decision on that. Okay. There's just been discussions.
Yeah, it seems to me it's like when Mr. Morse came to us with his hub project, that these are homes that are going to be sold, not rented.
That's my understanding. However, when the applicant comes up to the podium, he could answer.
Because if it's an affordable, if we have one of the units as affordable instead of the in lieu of fee, then
it would be a for sale affordable unit.
Correct. And that would not be that difficult for the city to handle, would it?
Doing one unit is an administrative nightmare. More units is easier to manage than just monitoring.
To sell one unit and keep an eye on it. Okay.
One of the things that happens with the affordable units, the first sale isn't the problem, it's future sales. Because what you do is you wind up with an agreement that says that if the property is sold over an affordable amount in the year that it's sold, then the excess is shared between the city and the property owner. The city initially will try to force the property owner at that point in the future to sell to another low or moderate income occupant, and then if you can't, then the backup is you're splitting the cost, and who knows where we'll be at the time it's sold and if we're going to be able to monitor. Okay. So as the city manager said, sometimes even though it's counterintuitive, it's easier to get staff to be able to help manage or work with a rental, in this case the senior unit, the senior development if it goes that way, because you're working with somebody who's used to doing it all the time rather than an individual private owner that's going to have some problems with it.
Thank you very much.
Well, it wasn't that well thought out by our legislators.
Okay. All righty. Okay. If I could ask Mr. Kim a couple questions.
Open up
Would-
the public then, I guess?
Open it up to the public and get Mr. Kim up here first, please. Thank
Hello,
you, sir.
everybody. Yes.
Welcome, thank
So
you.
First of all, I'd like to answer some question about the lighting side.
The microphone goes up. Thank you.
Lighting plan you concern? You mentioned about the public lighting, but would you see the lighting side? Initially, we provided,
Mr. Kim, you gotta, please take the
Pull off.
microphone.
You can take it off.
Sir, you can take the microphone.
thank you.
Now you're Elvis.
We provide the pedestrian light here. Every tree we under lighting over here. That you can see the spot there. So even if you don't have any public street lighting, still it will be very light brightly in the city, this area. I know, as far as I know, there is no lighting there.
Correct.
When would it, how high is the lighting is on that?
This.
Lighting post, not that high, maybe a couple of feet.
Well, my question was about having a street light for the pedestrians and people walking down the street at night. That's what my question. I think there's a street light on the corner right now.
Street lighting is, actually there's no public lighting. There's no, we provide on the street, it's a couple of feet like this much.
Right.
Pedestrian lighting.
But the street needs to be lit, like from street
Yeah,
lights.
that's public lighting.
But that's
That's public lighting,
Yeah.
yes.
John, excuse me. Mark said that's on us. That's not required by this
No,
project,
no.
right? Didn't you say
There
that
will
the
be
other
one
street
street
lighting?
light.
One street
up
light
the
is
rest
the
of-
requirement of Mr. Kim in this
Right,
project.
but up the rest of
But
Central,
there
that's.
is one street light there right now. Is that right?
No,
No.
no.
There's
Mr.
not,
Kim says
there's not a street light on the
No.
corner. I think there is under that tree, you just can't see it, but maybe
That
I'm
could
wrong.
be too.
But
These are going to be private homes for sale,
Yes.
correct? Okay. And I was concerned, your barbecue area, the pictures here just show a fire pit in the ground.
5 feet, yes.
Will there be any other amenities in the barbecue area?
Actually, we didn't decide yet. We followed the planning commission,
Okay.
just like a little fence around the barbecue area to secure the area to safety.
Okay.
And then maybe probably show some kind of lighting on there.
You would hope with the barbecue area
Yeah,
that there might
small,
be
yes.
barbecues instead of
Right.
just a fire pit, but yeah, okay, thank
If
you.
you go back to the landscape plan, what's currently shown, yeah, that's true.
small,
It looks like there might be a barbecue shown at the north, but
Okay.
the details, if the council has any recommendations for what they'd like to see in there, certainly can provide that.
It's a nice project, sir. Does anybody have questions for Mr. Kim?
I do, yeah, I do.
Okay.
In our package here, a lot of this says that there are some things that are not complete or incomplete or have not been provided to planning. I mean, I would like to, before I have any more input on this, see that all of those things are turned into our planning in completion. That all these things that were mentioned in here that were incomplete should be completed before we move forward. That's just my opinion.
So my comment on that would be that I have worked with the applicant over a period of over a year to try to get a level of complete plans that I felt was appropriate. And at this point, this is what I believe to be the most complete set of plans that we've gotten so far after working with the applicant over a period of over a year. And so that's why I brought it at this point with the conditions, just because, at some point, we do want to bring the project forward, and and that was the point at the planning commission phase, was to bring it to the planning commission to allow them to make that decision on whether or not we move it forward at this point or not.
And if I just may add to what Andrea said, all of the design, the changes that we're looking for on the final plans don't affect the design of the project as far as the landscaping, the design. It's just inconsistencies on the plans. So if you look at plans, you're going to see different things on different plans. We're going to try to get a consistent set, but it won't change how the layout of the project is.
And I do have confidence in the Planning Commission, and they were comfortable bringing this forward.
Yes, so they saw the project multiple times. We brought it to them, conceptually, then preliminarily, and then when the public hearing came open, there was multiple meetings, and so they've seen several iterations of the plans, and their recommendation was consistent with what staff's recommendation was, which was to, again, recommend approval of the plans with these detailed conditions, and leave it in staff's court at that time to not accept plans until those details are provided. But at the same time allowing the project to move forward with entitlement.
And if these conditions are not met, then the plan does not proceed.
That's correct. I would not accept the plans in.
Would it smooth it out if you decided what those improvements would be and a bond be posted or a deposit be made? What kind of deposit do we have?
It's not for improvements, it's just things on the plans. So it's more effective if we just don't accept the plans if they do not have all the items that we request. Okay. And then we just don't process until those are done.
All right. We've had some projects that never got paid.
Any other questions for Mr. Kim? No. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak on this agenda item? Judy?
Okay, turn the microphone on. Judy.
I'm just going to change this, yeah. Go ahead.
I just personally would like to see it go through because I think it would help the property values there on Central Avenue. My only concern is the parking on the streets and everything is there going to be a spot where the house guests can park like they have at the mobile home park, and because otherwise they'll all be parking out in the street?
There are no separate areas for guest parking. Just similar to the existing single-family homes in the neighborhood, there's required 2 parking spaces in the garage, and the rest of the visitors and extra cars park on the street.
Yeah,
so
we do have
consistent.
that on the street, so.
Or they could park on the driveway.
Yeah.
Correct.
In the driveway.
Yeah. That's it. I just would like to see it come through, but that's just my opinion. I see there's not a whole bunch of Central Avenue people here.
You do live on Central.
Yes, I do. There's a lot of other people I'm sure got letters too.
At this point, you're the majority opinion.
100%.
Well, I've been here 78 years, so I just have one thing I want to show. For all of you on City Council and everything, if you have not read this book from page to page, it's just super.
Kirk Craig did a great
being
job.
born and raised here and looking at the pictures and seeing it progress and everything, it's amazing.
Been out for over 10 years.
Just would like to see everybody read that.
I have my copy.
You get it at the book copy too.
Reprint.
Yeah.
I need one.
Thank you. For sale at the Historical Society.
All right then.
All righty. No other public comment, bringing it back to council for discussion and direction.
Could I ask, at this point, assuming there's no surprises, what is your forecast for completion? What are you looking at, Mr. Kim?
That's what you're planning to do?
Sorry. Yeah, completion for occupancy.
Yes, it commence as soon as possible whenever we get final approval, not only the planning but also the county building and safety, and then we're gonna start. I expected end of this month. I'm sorry, middle to end for demolition procedure, and after that 4 to 5 months, which means around July or early August we'll finish the project.
So September is a realistic.
Yeah, realistically September is much better than, but we are trying the summertime.
And I believe you do have your demo permits from the county.
Yes, we have already.
So those are ready to go.
Yes.
I would, taking off from Ms. Pedersen's Buellton pitch. One of the buildings on your property is a fairly historic building in Buellton. It was the old canning room for Anderson's Pea Soup.
Oh, yes.
And before you demolish it, I would truly appreciate it if you would consider letting some historical members in to see if there's anything
Yes,
that we
that's
can
what we
put
are
in our
trying to do.
museum. That would be a great honor for us.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
50-year-old split seat pea soup.
Well, I mean, some of it's valuable. They've got some pretty expensive equipment still in there that I'm sure that you can take and sell for cash. But there might be something in there that's not so valuable that the Historical Society could put in our museum. Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Okay. Well,
I'll start. I initially saw this as a conceptual plan, and it was going to be townhouses. And Andrea can testify that those plans were pretty sketchy then. We asked for a lot. A lot of it was, especially in landscaping. So I can see an improvement, even though I didn't see the project all the way through from the initial conceptual to now. But seeing those improvements, and in that area, this is a much better project than what was initially asked for. So I think with the fine tuning and with Andrea staying on board and staying on top of it, I think this could be a nice project for that little area. It'll clean up that little street there immensely. With John's concerns about the lighting, we're only guided by what we can do now, so hopefully north of that project, where some of those other houses are getting relatively older, if someone else decides to improve that area, I think that's the time when we ask for more lighting and constructing on that end of the street. But I think it's a project that needs to go forward, and
I believe the city owns a piece of that street too.
yeah.
Could put a street light, well, I don't know if that's a good spot for a street light for Judy, but something.
I can't hear you.
Well, the city owns the property across the street from you, and that would probably not be a good place for a street light for you. It'd be shining right in your face from across the street, but something,
Don't they basically
something to work
they
on.
shine down?
Cobra lights, yeah.
It's a dark street. I mean, you can't walk there at night or anything. It really is, but
I think she
my
likes
house
the
has
street.
been there 62 years, so it's been dark for 62 years.
You know where all the bumps are in the road, and, yeah.
I know. I could tell you a lot about the city.
I know you could. You have.
And the grammar school where I went to, and post office.
Where I worked, yeah.
So,
Okay. Anybody else have any comments, or?
Madam Mayor, I'm glad to see under general conditions that we're not allowing storage of nuclear material. That's a bonus. My only concern is the two things. Is that 10 foot, that we're varying that setback to 10 feet. I don't know if this could be maybe moved or condensed or... and it's only on the one side, I think. Andrea
Are
is
you
the one.
referring
Yes,
to
that.
here along the alley?
Yes, that we're kind of squeezing that project in there a little bit. That's my concern. And the other one is the affordable housing.
Can't get around that. I think they look like an individual structure than an apartment house.
Right.
And I think the greenery will just serve to improve that as they mature.
Yeah, I do like the landscaping idea. I think that's going to really make the street look nice, to have some nice landscaping there. Okay. Vice Mayor, any comments from you, or are you?
I'm pleased with it. I think that...
Would anybody like to make a motion?
I will make a motion that we move forward with this project for staff's recommendation.
And I will second that with the condition that we get it on the record that your concerns with the inconsistencies are complied with prior to final approval on this by planning.
Page 42, sir.
Don't know
Thank
what you're
you.
looking for.
Well, I looked at the resolution.
This one?
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I move approval of Resolution 1909, Resolution City Council, City of Buellton, approving a final development plan 17 FDP-02 and tentative track map 31060 for the Central Home project located on northeast corner of 1st 2nd Avenue, Assessor's Parcel 099283005, 099283006, and 099283007.
All right.
And once again, I will second that with the conditions that the inconsistencies are met prior to the final approval of this project.
Wonderful. Linda?
Don't worry, that'll...
Vice Mayor Andrusik.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Mercado.
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez.
Aye.
And Mayor Sierra.
Aye. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
September will be here before you...
We'll see. Thank you very much.
Thank you for investing in Buellton.
We move on to council member comments/items. Councilmember King, any comments/items?
I would like us to, in the future, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but review our, what do you call that, Andrea? Our agrarian style developments. Because I know that was approved many, many years ago. I've heard grumblings from people in the community about, especially the Batten Board. I just, if you would put something together where we could all take a look at that and maybe have the elevations altered.
We can take a look at the community design guidelines, so Andrea will put that on our work plan.
Okay.
Councilmember, no? Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Any comments/items?
Yes, we're talking about council comments.
Correct.
Okay.
Slash items.
/items.
Slash items. We've just been through an issue with our Avenue of Flags and received quite a bit of public comment and concerns about the lack of proper lighting. And with that, we've had Randy, I believe it's Arneson.
Andalos Energy.
Andalos Energy has provided us with and I've given each of you what he gave to me, the one for staff, a product that will help us not have to be at the bequest of PG&E saying we've asked him, they basically said we don't have enough power to run the lights to shine on our flags. And this project seems to be available, solar, meaning no electricity for us to have to pay for that. And you can bump them up. They sit on, the solar panel sits on top of the pole and shines down. And I would like us to contact either Randy or the solar company and have them give us, maybe walk this in a future agenda item, that we maybe have a little work study down there or a show and tell, and tell us what the feasibility is of lighting the flagpoles without PG&E saying we don't have a right to have that power. Because I told him our option, I said, well then just dig a trench now while you're fixing everything else, but that's an...
And I'll answer for Rose since she's got her cold going on. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we're looking at solar options as well, so this is well received for us to take a look at and add to our list.
Read what they've put, that would work. Okay, then the second option, or the second comment that I have is with regard to the triangles, the wire triangles sitting on the avenue.
That was my comment.
And I've sat and I've listened twice to they got $200,000 and it's been there, and One person said we could have 3 or 6 months. We agreed on April the 12th to have them here. That would have made it for 6 months. The 6 month was talked about. That would have been about October. And I'm disappointed that the Art Association or whoever it is that was telling us about this support, I've not heard anyone say anything attractive about the triangles.
Not anymore, huh?
And that brings us then to what's kind of prompted it. I don't use Facebook. I tried it one time. Too time consuming, so I don't respond, but I've been handed Facebook comments by several people that are very negative about, let's see what they call it, Buellton. One, they would suggest we change the name of the town to Buellton. The another one says when they think that there probably are rodents infesting the grass that's there on our beautiful Avenue of Flags. So I would like to have a time certain if we can organize it. I remember, in fact, when I listened to it, Sarah said they were told on Wednesday that they need to be off of the Kachuma dock the following Monday, and they were. So I would like to ask that we...
They're working on it. They have a new location at the train station to move them to. So they're getting back to us on a date for moving. Yes, Santa Barbara train station.
See, that's the only thing I've heard. Last I heard, they were going to New York City.
Yeah.
Well, that was a while ago, and they just got back earlier this week, and I was going to report on the triangles of what the status is, and they're planning to move those. Haven't got a date yet, but they're getting the crane ready, and they'll be coming. And
we will know ahead of time so we can have our party.
Absolutely, because I want to have a chairs out there to see how they get them out of
Yeah, we're going to watch half the avenue come up with
how they get the things out of the...
So that, if we could get those two done, and then the third thing that I would like us to put a special emphasis on is getting a better teleprompting or getting better production of our council and planning commission meetings. I've tried to go and look at his archives. Not available, nothing showing. I asked a year or two ago that we get a second camera with an operator. There's a lot of business that goes on here, and we have access to a person who's willing to give us a very good deal, Silvio. I think it's Silvio. He handles the audio visual for the county, and he lives, if he doesn't live in Buellton, he at least lives in the valley. And he had given us a quote, and I would like to ask us before, as we're setting money aside for things, that we, I think it was something less than $2,500 to have a camera zeroing in on what is being said, because the people talk to me in the community and they say, either we can't hear it or we don't know who's talking. We'd like to see who's saying what. And we have our board.
That's because you're not speaking into your microphone.
Thank you.
And this was brought up by council, I believe, at the last meeting,
Yes.
and we have it on our list for the budget, to go over that as part of a budget item, for budget goals.
Can we earmark it? It should not be that tough to perhaps do that within 60 or 90 days.
25.
Well, we have our budget goal setting in February, so that's when we were planning to have that.
That's within 60 days?
Yes, it is.
And we can fast track that maybe?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Make sure Silvio's going to be around?
Well,
Because-
Rose will work with him on getting the estimates on that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sanchez, any comments / items from you?
I have an item.
Oh,
I would just like to follow up on Ed's, this is interesting with the solar lighting, and there's plenty of light posts on Central Avenue without any too much major digging up and infrastructure. I think it would be worth checking on putting these solar lightings on Central Avenue. We can get, if we're going to be getting prices per or whatever. And the poles are there. They've got, it's overhead wiring and everything else. And there's a way
I did
to,
not. Thank you. I wasn't sure there was an extra.
you know, the engineer, not to hire an engineer to do it, but the people that sell these lights must have a way to attach them to a pole instead of bringing their own poles in. You can, if you can put them on the side of a building, you can put them on a pole or whatever. And I don't think it would be out of the, without doing any homework on it. I'd like to see,
It would be interesting
study,
to look
see
at
what it
it,
would
yeah.
take to put solar lighting there. And then we wouldn't have to make it a major dig up the street kind of deal and all that. And I think it'd be reasonable with the cost-wise. I would like to see that it's reasonable cost-wise. I think we owe the residents of Central Avenue some lighting. and
Our
that's,
original Buelltonians.
the original people, and it is a busy street, and there's a lot of people going from the liquor store up the street to the apartments and vice versa. And I just would like to see that street lit up. And I think this is something that it wouldn't have to be these people, but there's probably 100 companies trying to have this business and do sell their products. And I think we ought to put it on the agenda or whatever it takes to study it and get it installed without a lot of work.
And I just had one quick one before we move on. Status of the trucks on McMurray and Avenue of Flags, or is anything?
We haven't got anything back from Mr. Gougia on his, he's a little busy with a fire in Santa Maria right now, but I'll have Irma follow up with him.
Oh.
And I still need to contact Motel 6 because they never got back to me the first time, so I will continue with that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All righty, moving on to written communications.
No,
None?
ma'am. Sorry.
Thank you. Committee reports? Any committee reports? Nope, nope,
None
nope.
yet. Too
Nothing?
early.
Okay, well, we are meeting, the traffic study starts towards the end of this month, so that's going to be interesting. They're doing a kickoff in Solvang in a couple weeks. Business items, agenda item number 7, consideration of wastewater treatment plant management agreement with Santa Ynez Community Services District. Ms. Hess.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. So we just want to make sure we brought this to council tonight. We will be bringing this item, continuing it to the second meeting in January. But currently, we have a lead wastewater position open, and it's been advertised since October 1st. We haven't had any applicants to fill that position. That position is also the designated chief plant operator for our wastewater treatment plant. By law, we have to have a CPO managing our plant. So currently in the interim, we have a contract with Fluid Resources Management, FRM, who does other maintenance services with us. They have contract operators that are registered with the regional board that is able to provide that service with us. In the longer term, we've also been speaking with the Santa Ynez Community Services District. They provide wastewater operations for the Chumash treatment plant facility. So they have operators that is able to work at our facilities and provide the CPO service as well. Their rates are lower than FRM's, which would be helpful for us in the long term, while we're still in recruitment process for the lead position. So this would be a short-term solution. While we're still in recruitment, the Community Services District is still reviewing the draft agreement. We've had a couple of rounds so far, and their attorneys has not gotten back to us in the latest draft. So that is the reason why we're going to be continuing this item into the second meeting of January. But in your packet, you do have the initial draft agreement, which we started with, and then we'll be bringing back a revised version for you during the next month. Our requirements right now for the CPO position is a grade 3 operator for the wastewater treatment plant. That's what we're required in order to keep in compliance with the regional board at this point in time. So currently we're utilizing the contract services, and hopefully we'll either find someone that will apply for the position, be able to fill our needs, or we recruit lower and take some time to grow the person into the position. In either case, we do need a CPO for compliance for a wastewater plant.
Thank you. Any questions?
Comments?
Well, let me open it to the public. I don't think we'll keep it open very long. Anybody want to speak about our wastewater recruitment, our San Ynez Community Services? Then I'll bring it back for your comments, sir.
My comment on this was, I might have caused this. The thing that bothers me about this is that even the wording here, it says that we have comparatively low pay ranges. We anticipate the position to remain unfilled longer than a few months. And I think that that's what needs to be rectified in this deal. The whole water, wastewater, I think has been underpaid positions, and that's probably why there's 3 vacancies today, or there were. I've asked for it in another capacity for it to be looked at. It was never looked at. It's something that needs to be considered by management and by staff, but it has to ultimately come through the city council, whether it's a rewording of the position or rehiring. I've sat and watched many well-qualified people that would have stayed longer and could have done a very good job of this position leave because the opportunities for these positions are better in other cities. And I would like to see that we would hire somebody that would be higher caliber than the last one, to be honest with you, that would be more competent in computers and planning and clerical things. But I think it's a position that should be considered to be at a higher qualification, maybe, and it could do a lot of the duties that we sub out, the reporting, a lot of the planning and things like that in the wastewater field. Takes a special kind of person to know what they're doing, and we would try to find somebody qualified for to do it at a higher pay, who could handle the whole thing without having to pay $100 an hour for somebody to come do it. I think we need to have a position in the city that people would want to come work here, and we'd have to pay them. But I think it's something that we should consider and either put on agenda or start working on, and initially start with a salary study and comparable places, and that should go. I've been told that everybody needs that, but right now we only need it in water and wastewater, or water for this position, and I'd like to make a motion that we direct staff to do that. We can't do that.
Not under this
Okay,
agenda
It has to
item.
be agendized.
Okay, I would like to agendize that in the future.
Okay.
Yeah, we can certainly take consensus direction from the council to agendize this for a future meeting, and if that's the council's wish, then staff will take that forward.
Madam Mayor, could I ask Greg, that's a pretty important step that needs to be made, that you don't just throw money at something. I think we need to have an understanding by the council of what do we need and how much are we willing to pay for it, because we have the distinct pleasure of having a wall around our city. We cannot simply annex land to take up the slack and shortfall of revenue. So that causes us to be much more diligent and not enter into something that we'll regret later, that we only have so many ratepayers. And the only option is to go up if we're not going to be able to go sideways.
Correct, which is why I do think that agendizing a future discussion where the 5 of you can talk amongst yourselves about the potential for a salary study
is in order for that.
Why don't close session?
I'll think about whether that's possible under the Brown Act, and if it is possible, then we can agendize it that way. Otherwise, it would be agendized for open session.
But I want to clarify, that's a long-term solution that we are already working on and understand. But in order to get operations at the plant continuing, we need this agreement to get staff in there for the short term.
This really doesn't have anything to do with the agreement with San Ynez Community Services
Correct.
District. It's a side problem to this. but...
That we already were aware of and we will be working on.
So we're continuing the agreement, and then in a meeting down the line, we will bring back...
Yes, correct.
...a discussion on studies. Works for everybody?
Well, I was just going to say, Madam Mayor, and John, you correct me if I'm wrong, and I think what he's asking for is just a comparison study of other communities and what we're paying for contract services. If we could combine that into, say, a single or two individuals rather than paying contract services. If you could hire somebody at a higher rate, John, is that where we're going with that? If you could hire someone at a higher rate that has the capability through their training and certificates to do things that possibly some contractors are doing now.
So this can come back for a discussion, but this is not agenda item number 7.
Right, but what I'm saying is that maybe you can do a comparison for a future agenda item of other cities of the same apples to apples.
I'll be working with the Rose and the city attorney.
Right, and I just, is that correct, John, where you're going with that?
That's what I was going with that, but I would say that this agreement, but to proceed with this agreement, I've met with these the two guys that would be doing the work there, and they're good operators, and for an interim for what they would offer, if we can make the agreement with the community services district and saying that would be my recommendation to follow through.
So it'll be good to come back to that then.
Right, yeah, we're just at the point, their attorney kind of did a massive red line. We accepted almost everything. There are a few things that we need to talk with them about, and one of the things that he put in, which was not covered in there, was some insurance requirements, which is perfectly fine, but when he put them in, we ran them past JPIA, and JPIA said we have slightly different language we'd like. He's out of town until Tuesday, so we're going to go back and forth on it next week, and you'll see it in 2 weeks, and we should be good to go. I'm glad to hear that the people that you're going to get are good people.
Yeah, I've talked to them. It was actually
good.
And realize too that we've got certain classifications and we've got a salary schedule, and we go by that. So in order for that to change, jobs would need to be reclassified, salary schedule needs to be adjusted, but the reclassification would have to come first. And then we'd look at a salary schedule, or changing the salary through a survey, and then going that route. So it's kind of, it's going to be a longer process.
Yeah, would that reclassification be a city council decision? Okay.
Yeah, so it would kind of be...
So you would have direct input on this?
Right, so redoing the trees for, the water tree and the wastewater tree, looking at that, looking for the best way, not just for now, but for 10, 15 years from now, and how, you're going to lead the city for that amount of time and what's going to happen in the future. Doing that classification first, going through our attorneys, and then looking at a salary schedule or a salary survey, and then redoing the salary schedule. And all that has to go through the council and be approved by attorneys.
Thank you.
It's going to take time.
Can you have that by our next meeting?
Sure.
Page 1.
Sure. No. All righty. We're moving on now. We're going to our city manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Storms. There's like a series of 5 storms coming in starting tomorrow that are probably going to last till Thursday or Friday of next week. So just be prepared. Our storm drains are clear and ready to go, so we don't anticipate any issues here in the city, but Public Works will be monitoring that during the storm. So it's
Thank you, Rose.
And as I mentioned to City Council last year, I planned on retiring this year. So I've come to a decision with my wife to actually retire this year, and my last day of work will be June 30th. I would like to thank the city for the opportunity to serve the city and residents as both planning director and city manager, and I feel we've accomplished many successful, significant successes during my time here. However, nothing would have been accomplished without the fantastic staff that actually does the work here at the city, and I would like to thank them for their support and their dedication to making the city what it is today. So, discussion and direction for the recruitment process will be on your next agenda, and I will have cost estimates for recruiters if you so desire. I will have different recruiters to choose from that we did last time. And with a 6-month recruitment process, the city should be able to have a new city manager in place in July or shortly thereafter, so there can be a smooth transition on that. Anyway, that's my big news for the day.
That's big news. That's big news.
Yeah, congrats.
Everybody's retiring.
Well, let me tell you, Mark, speaking from experience, after you retire, you can't get out of stuff at home. You don't have an excuse anymore. Oh, I gotta go to work.
Oh, I know, I got some lists coming up.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your service and for the
I do have, so it's official, there is a memo.
heads up.
Thanks.
Alrighty. Okay, and with that, I'm adjourning this meeting. We'll see everybody back here January 24th at 6 o'clock, 2019.